The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language.
Shall we begin?
Smiley is a suspicious person.
You won't know who to trust. Let's begin.
Welcome back, fellow spy nerds. It's another episode of the Spies Like Us podcast with, that's the podcast where we're overthinking what we're saying because we're on video, and that just fucking changes everything. Now, this is just a test video, but we're gonna nail it. We're gonna nail it. But I can already feel it. I can feel the fucking camera looking at me, even though I'm not looking at my face. It's fucking weird. The Spies Like Us podcast is the podcast where we discuss the representation of tradecraft on screens large and small. I'm Todd. With me, as always, am I pointing in the right direction? We'll find out. We'll find out in post. Are you over there? Are you over there? I don't know. It's Dave.
What up? How you doing?
I'm doing great, dude. Tell us what we're going to talk about this week.
We're talking about Red Sparrow, starring Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, this is we're pulling a recommendation from our audience. This was it's John. Let me make sure it's John. Yeah, John Valagi or Valagi. Don't know the exact pronunciation on that, but I want to thank him for bringing this one to our attention, because I really think we were sleeping on this, and it was a much different movie and a much better movie than what we were expecting. Wouldn't you agree?
Way better.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this last time, that I think I got through 10 minutes and gave up. And I think it was because of the accents were so annoying.
You were not 100% sure whether or not you'd seen the film.
It turns out I didn't.
Okay.
I think I confused the end of Atomic Blonde with this. It turned out to be a lot better than I expected.
Agreed, 100%. This is a fairly recent film. It's 2018, based on a 2013 novel by former CIA officer Jason Matthews. This is a work of fiction with a time period that isn't quite established. I saw one reviewer describe it as an alternate dimension where it's simultaneously 1968 and 2018.
That's pretty funny.
Because it does seem, and I mean, they make a point, though. There's one character that makes a point of pointing it out. That's matron at the school that, they say the Cold War is over. Oh, it's not over. So the Cold War does seem to be active in this movie in a way that it kind of isn't, or wouldn't make exact sense with the kind of technology and time period that we're looking at. But I'm going to go ahead. I thought about it. I'm going to call this 2005. That's my best guess, because I see that they have burner cell phones, but they don't have touchscreens yet.
Yeah.
And Putin, president of Russia, Putin is not in the movie, although he was in the book. So that's another clue. Well, it's sort of a clue on time period. Not a very good clue, because that guy's been in power for a very fucking long time at this point. I think we all agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Featured agencies are the SVR and CIA. Let's run our alphabet soup test real quick. It's a great time to quiz Dave. Dave, how well do you know your Russian spy agencies? Post KGB. All right. What? There's three. There's the FSB, the SVR, and the GRU. Can you tell me the equivalents that they might have to American and or British agencies?
Well, I'm pretty sure the KGB became the SVR later, and that's the CIA equivalent. And if I recall correctly, the FSB is the FBI. I'm not quite sure what the GRU is.
That's military intelligence.
Oh, I see.
Right. Would be equivalent to our DIA.
Mm.
Right. I thought, I mean, it's the SVR again that's featured here, which does seem appropriate for the kind of ops they're doing. I do think at the very beginning, which we're going to, well, I guess will be a while before we get to the briefing room, but just to mention that at the very beginning, when they are looking at the footage of the Gorky Park incident, that would have been probably the FSB. That would have landed on their desk first, them being like the internal security, right? Because that was just some vice cops looking for drug dealers and homosexuals in the park bushes.
Yeah.
Un-Russian activities, you might call it.
Right.
But they weren't looking for spies. So, but in the end, I thought, well, it probably went through the FSB and then at some point came to the attention of the SVR. So we'll give them a pass on that. We don't need the movie to be super complicated in that respect. Now, we liked it. Critics and audiences. Now, I'm not going to say I loved it. But I get the feeling, just looking at some reviews and some audience ratings, that we like it a bit more than the general public. It was received pretty coolly and wouldn't have made its budget back if it wasn't for international ticket sales.
Oh, okay. So it did well overseas.
Did well overseas. That's where it really made its profits. Jennifer Lawrence, as you say, and I mean, possibly part of the problem with the profitability angle is that she took reports are between 15 and 20 million for starring in this movie, which, depending on how you slice it, that could be as much as 1/3 of the budget. Yeah.
Well, she was kind of the biggest name, it looked like.
She was.
Yeah.
This is, however, okay, so I think it's American Hustle where everyone stood up and took notice in 2013.
Oh, her? Yeah, absolutely. And then she did Hunger Games, and that kind of put her on the mainstream, attention.
In the meantime, yeah, she's definitely like still fulfilling her contract, finishing off various X-Men and Hunger Games movies. But yeah. I don't really see her like coming back to our attention as like a magnetic ultra movie star until possibly Don't Look Up from last year, which you saw. I haven't.
Oh, it was great. Yeah. That was like right up my alley.
How much that's a kind of a it's an ensemble cast, right? Sorta. I don't know. How much of it is she in?
Quite a bit. It's her and Leo are like the main characters.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I would call them both supporting characters to each other. Like, I don't really think one of them was more, maybe Leo, but I mean, it seemed like it was them. And then, yeah, it was an ensemble cast. Like, everybody was in it for the most part.
All right, cool. I feel personally, I feel like I just can't mention Jennifer Lawrence without recommending to people her very first role, which is a movie called Winter's Bone. I know she got like a Best Actress nomination for it. At the time, I think she was she's only 20 years old. I think she was like, at the time, only one of the three youngest women to ever get a nomination. But Winter's Bone, really, really, really good movie. Check it out. The director here is Francis Lawrence. I'm assuming, as far as I know, no relation. But he is also known as the director of Constantine, which I didn't see, but
I did. It was awful, but that's when Tilda Swinton played Gabriel, and she's the best actress ever. So if there's any reason to see that movie, it's the 2 minutes that you see Tilda Swinton for at the end of the film.
I only ever heard one person ever talk about it, and that was Mike, and he actually really liked it.
Oh, really?
But he's no stranger to directing Jennifer Lawrence, as he did 3 of the Hunger Game movies with her.
Oh, okay. That's probably why she got cast for this then. I remember when the advertising for this came out, I was really excited. I was like, oh my God, J Law is playing a spy in a spy film. I'm really, really excited for this. And then the reviews came back from like my friends and the critics, and it came back really bad. And I was like, oh, okay. But I'm glad we did it on the show because I actually enjoyed it.
I had pretty much the same experience. When I first saw the ads, I was like, let's go. Let's do Atomic Blonde, but with Jennifer Lawrence. But then it just kind of, I don't know. There was not enough hype around it or anything for me to actually get my butt out to the theaters. Clearly now, there is a decent amount of nudity and, how do I say it? Not explicit, but, well, let's say very implicit, highly charged, sexual, stuff going on in here, including some rape scenes.
Yeah, there was like a couple rape scenes. Yeah, I was, they kind of shoved it in your face at the beginning and then let up on it later. I think when we talked about this, I had mentioned it felt to me like this movie was going in multiple different directions. Like, because it starts out with, you know, she loses her place as like the star ballerina, and then is basically used as a sexual tool to like manipulate like a, you know, VIP type. She gets raped, then she gets sent to school where they rape her and teach her how to be like, you know, basically a seductress. And then some dude tries to rape her. And then all of a sudden it switches gears into something else. And then it switches gears again. And it's not until the big twist in the end that I really was like, okay, this is what they wanted to do the whole time. You know, I just kind of felt like they were message wise, not like tradecraft wise, but like this is what they wanted. And then it would change. And then they do it again. And then they do it again. And then I'm like, okay, what's going on? And then it ended, and I was like, oh, okay, it's the twist.
Right. So here's my thought on the sexual aspect of this film. I feel like it's necessary to set her up to hate her uncle as much as she does, which turns out to be like what the whole film spins around. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, some terrible shit happens to her, but at the end of the day, she comes across as being so like empowered, you know, like maintaining her female inner strength, you know, and especially in the way that she confronts her bully in the classroom, kind of situation that, it's not that I wanted to see her get broken. Like, it's not like I wanted to watching her get more broken down by this weird sex shit wouldn't have been pleasant for me, but it would have given the film a little more integrity in that aspect. I kind of feel like they set it up, and I don't know, I feel like I kind of read that in some of the critic reviews too, that it's just kind of odd in that way.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it started out with all of this like kind of sexual assault, and that was like the tone, and then it switches the tone. So it like from like an ethos or like a pathos type of perspective, I was really confused for most of the movie as to like what they wanted us to think or feel, because they kept setting up us to feel and think certain things. And one of those things was right from the get-go. It's about, you know, a woman being a tool for the man and like the government, and like, you know, with all the sexual assault she goes through, and then being used as a tool for sex. I thought that's what the movie was about. And then it completely changes. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess now she's learning how to be a really good assassin. You know, it just tone wise, it kind of switched so many times that I was really confused until the end. And I was like, oh, this is what they wanted the whole time, which was like, you know, getting back at Uncle.
It's interesting you just used the word assassin because that's what I was expecting from the film.
Yeah.
But she's actually fielded as an intelligence gathering agent, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
she's but she's specially trained to use sex toward that end. So it can't. I mean, I feel like we can't fail to mention that this was right after Jennifer Lawrence's like her personal nude photos had been leaked. So, do you remember that in the news?
Yeah, I remember that. That was a big deal, and she was not happy about it.
She was very not happy about it. So,
Yeah.
in interviews, she said obviously that was a huge factor in her talking to the director, and 100%. I mean, it's got to be the fact that she's worked with this director like 3 times before. So, they have a working relationship and they can have this conversation and be really honest with each other about like, her limits and stuff. But, in the end, she said that she didn't want that photo leak experience, as traumatizing as it was for her and legitimately fucked up, to dictate her creative choices in her career. So I think she kind of went into this one like a little willfully, just to kind of like in the same kind of way that Dominica kind of does in the movie, to like flaunt her sexuality and her nakedness in a way that says like, no, it's not you that have power over me, it's me that has power over you.
Yeah.
Because that's really coming from like Jennifer Lawrence's mindset approaching this movie. It sounds like to me. She is really good in the film. That's one thing that critics and audiences, that's pretty much, even people that hated the film said, well, J-Law was fucking awesome in it. Everything else was trash.
Yeah.
Like that's the worst review of the movie that you can find is like everything was trash, but J-Law was awesome. So yeah, that's her. Joel Edgerton is an actor. I keep hearing his name. I seem to just keep dodging his body of work. The only thing that I see from him that I know him from, and I wouldn't have even clocked him were it not for IMDb, was that he played the Lord in The Green Knight.
Oh yeah. That's right. That was great.
A movie that we both are huge boosters of.
Yeah. I remember seeing him and Will Smith did that future cop buddy movie where he's an orc. I think Joel Edgerton plays an orc. It's on Netflix.
All right.
Yeah, it's a cop buddy movie. I remember seeing billboards of it. I didn't watch it though, but it was like a buddy cop movie. The idea is there's like orcs and shit, and Joel Edgerton's an orc, and it's like him and Will Smith. It was weird.
Okay.
That's what I know his name from. Is just seeing billboards.
Jeremy Irons, another name, apparently much loved actor that, again, like it just seems like I have personally managed to dodge for most of my life. And looking at his body of work, when I've seen him, I never recognized him or got excited about him. But I can count three movies that I've seen him in, and I cannot tell you what character he played in any of them. Those being Die Hard with a Vengeance, Kingdom of Heaven, and Assassin's Creed. You might know him from the Justice League movies. I think he has a big part in those.
Do you know who he was in the Justice League movies?
I don't. Let's check it.
Who is? Oh, I'm pulling him. Oh, he was Alfred. Oh, yeah. Okay. And in this one, was he the admiral in Red Sparrow?
I think it's a general, but yeah, he's Marvel with the glasses.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, he was great. I don't know what that one reviewer was talking about. I thought all the acting was really good in this.
Oh, you know what? Hey, by the way, the guy that plays Ivan, Dominica's uncle, I thought he was like pretty fucking spot on, mesmerizing. One big thing I kept thinking is like, why has this guy not been tapped to be a Bond villain yet? I think I would put him on my short list.
Oh, absolutely.
I think he would be a fantastic Bond villain. And that guy, now that we're talking about him real quick, okay, like he does look like a certain someone, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, he looks just
does
like Putin. He looks just like him. Yeah, it's weird.
He really does. The director says that wasn't the intention, and that he didn't even notice the similarity between them until like he saw him on camera. Like he said, which I don't know. That's just fucking weird to me. I can't imagine. I can't imagine not thinking that I'm
not
actually
picking that up. Yeah,
I can't imagine not thinking that I'm talking to fucking Putin.
yeah.
If I met that guy,
right.
You mentioned the you didn't like the accents. You know, that's something some people I'll hear complaints about. I have never personally sat in a movie and said like, oh, that's a shitty accent, because I guess I just don't have a great ear for it.
Right.
But I guess you didn't like hers.
No.
Do you think Irons and Kieran Hines pulled it off? I don't know.
Her like uncle. Yeah, I think he did it. Yeah, I mean, he actually is Russian, right?
Actually, no.
Oh, he's Belgium.
Right. So
okay.
The funny thing to me is here that like none of the Russian characters are played by Russians. And the main American character is not played by an American. Joel Edgerton being Australian.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, me neither. I guess I don't know. Australians definitely seem to be able to mask their accents really well, and
yeah,
like I think it's difficult for an American to do an Australian accent, but apparently like Australian people have no problem doing American accents whatsoever.
Yeah,
like, isn't Nicole Kidman is Australian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's there's that, and then some repeat performances. We got a couple notable ones. Kieran Hines, I finally did the work of finding out how to pronounce his name, because the way it's spelled is a tough one, right? This is the one that's spelled like Caran. But yeah, it's a really simple pronunciation. It's just Kieran. He now joins the three-peat club along with Robert Redford and Michael Lonsdale, if I'm not mistaken.
Who is he?
Kieran Hines plays the head of the SVR. We know him. We remember him also from Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Oh,
he's that stony faced guy.
Yeah.
Hair.
I'm looking at a pic. Yeah, I definitely have seen him in a ton of stuff and didn't realize.
Right, and we have him from Tinker Tailor, from Munich, and then now from this film.
Yeah,
and right. Mary Louise Parker is also a repeat performance, having also graced our podcast reviews for her portrayal of Bruce Willis's love interest in the movie Red.
Oh, she's the one that reads all the romance novels and just wanted to get pulled. Yeah, I remember her.
That's the one. Small role in this film, but she shows up. She shows up for it. Park bench check. Unfortunately, even though we had a great opportunity, because there was a meeting in a park, but they did not sit in on a bench. This movie does not pass the basic, does it have a park bench in it, a park bench scene in it test.
No. We had like a pool scene. That was about it. That really wouldn't count anyway, because there wasn't like an information trade.
Yeah, there was one. I think there maybe was a scene in a bar that I thought might have slightly qualified, but no park benches in this movie. Missed opportunity, because there was a park. There was a meeting in a park. So,
Yeah.
but that said, that's all the context I have for the film, and it's time for briefing room.
Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
David, what I want to do here in the briefing room, I want to try to run through as much of the story like without Dominica in it as we can. Okay. And then circle back and insert her back into the story, because she is, in the end, like, she's a disruptor character. You know, I mean, there's a spy story kind of going on here, and then she comes along and gets inserted into it, but then with her own special secret agenda. So let's start just by talking about Nate and Marble. And you know, our movie episodes are always chock full of spoilers. A lot of times I like to work the plot backwards, you know, instead of trying to walk through and like imagine all the places where we didn't have certain information and then we do. You know, we want to talk about it like we have all the information now. We're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss it. Does it all make total sense? So, but this one requires a massive spoiler warning, because this movie's got some great twists and turns. So I'll give you guys like a 5 count to get out of here and run if that's going to fuck it up for you. And that's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jeremy Irons is Marble.
Yeah. Let's get it out of the way for now.
Which is a great twist. The movie starts out with a little bit of Nate's. Oh, and let's also name our major characters. Nate is our CIA guy. Dominica is Jennifer Lawrence. And Ivan is her uncle. Everyone else, I think we can basically refer to as like by their roles or by their actor names. But you need to know those 3 names. So movie starts out with Nate getting a coded message from his contact. And we do not find out until the end of the movie what a valuable contact he's got. You know, I mean, for a lot of the movie, I was just thinking like it could, I mean, it's just anybody. It could be some paper pushing clerk that's got some access to a Xerox machine. And
yeah, they definitely downplayed
to sell
it.
secrets.
Yeah, they definitely
did.
It. Yeah,
they did. Yeah, there was a point like 2/3 through the movie, I wrote down a note of for myself saying like, you know, it really seems like we've completely forgotten about Marble at this point. But then you get to the end of the movie and like, no, the movie did not forget about Marble at all. Yeah, he's really important, both to the plot and the story. So Nate, he's working in Moscow. I think it's Moscow. It's definitely Russia. Gorky Park is in Moscow, right?
I'm not an expert on Russian parks, but
let's
somewhere in Russia. Let's say it's Moscow.
Let's hope it is.
Yeah.
He gets a coded message telling him that his contact Marble wants to meet him in Gorky Park, presumably to like pass on some information. Got to stop and talk about the technique that he gets the message through. He gets a phone call. He says this is the phone operator automated message, computer voice, I think, says this is a test of the phone lines or something, and then it starts reading out different words in different voices, you know.
So it's that's like, right. Yeah.
You know, so it's like Oscar, Petrov, beautiful, you know, just unrelated words. But he's writing down the first letter of each of the words, and then he wraps it around a stick in a certain way. And this is, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I can spell it. It's called it's a Cytale. It's a SCYTALE encryption method. And it is a very, very weak encryption method, by the way.
Oh, they showed this at the Spy Museum when I went in DC. They had one of these. And it was like considered one of the oldest ways of ciphering.
Ancient Greece. It's been around since They used to burn the letters into leather strips.
Mhm.
So yeah, so this encryption method is not going to fool anyone, and should we should tag some minus spy points. It kind of looks cool, but honestly, this is the sort of thing that you do in like junior high school and think that you're being clever.
Yeah. So I'm looking at Skitelli.
Yeah.
Skitelli. I think is how it's pronounced.
All right.
Skitali, something like that. I think. But yeah, I remember this. They had the leather wrapping at the Spy Museum, and you get to see like the cool message. But he writes it on a notebook, and I guess it's a specific width, and then he wraps it around a pencil. But yeah, you're right. This is like something like the teacher shows you, like the old lemon disappearing ink, reappearing ink trick.
Right. And when you first heard about that in 5th grade, you were like, oh my God, I'm going to send so many secret messages with this.
Yeah.
And then, like, because your little 50-year-old brain doesn't realize that you don't actually have any fucking secrets that anybody cares about. Really.
Right. You just end up like sending a dick to your friend or something.
Nice. But yeah, go down. Looks like you got some notes on what happens in Gorky Park when Nate tries to meet with his with his contact.
Yeah. So we still don't know Marble at this point. We just see Nate, and he meets with someone in the park, and then the police show up, and the police stop Marble. And what Nate does to protect Marble is start shooting his gun so that they come after him, and Marble can get away free. Nate runs to the nearest, I guess, American embassy, and they take him in, and he's CIA. Obviously, they bring him in. I wanted to mark this as my number 3 worst tradecraft. I actually kind of had a little bit of difficulty picking some worsts. I marked this as like super realistic because a lot of times when you see like spy films or just spy content in general, and they meet at a park in the middle of the night, and they pick like a specific place. A lot of these places that would be a nice hidden place are places that drug dealers deal drugs and prostitutes sell their bodies. Or like if it's like somewhere in Russia where homosexuality is very illegal or whatever, or back then, like, that would be the place that the homosexual prostitution would happen, would be in a dark park where nobody goes at night. So if you're Vice and you've like caught a couple people, you're going to find out, well, this is the place, this is the park you go to if you're trying to get like a prostitute or some drugs, right? So I marked, that's really cool because we never saw this in a movie. But then going over my list of best and worst, Marble and Nate are especially Marble, who's like very high up, has to be one of the best at tradecraft, right? Because he's kept himself a secret this whole time, being like a huge, like high up mole, right? And Nate has obviously been overseas before undercover. I would hope that these veteran type agents or officers or whatever would be aware that, hey, this is where the sex happens, so Vice is probably going to show up. But again, we needed the movie to start, and we needed a reason for this whole event where like Nate leaves and has to come back. Type of thing.
You're right.
Yeah.
I think they even, I didn't triple check on this, but I think they even made the handoff after the headlights had come on and they were totally visible by a car, which honestly, I mean, granted they don't know who it is, but that just, you're right. You're right. I didn't like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked that they had Vice pick them up at a place where drug deals and prostitution happen, because that's where that happens at the dead of night, the places that nobody goes. And Vice is going to pick up on that. But then I also wanted to mark it as my worst tradecraft, even though it's super realistic that spies of this caliber should have known this is where the prostitution happens and the drug deals happen.
Spies of this caliber should be using dead drops. They shouldn't even be seen together.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or a cutoff or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Um, so that's our initial scene. We won't see Nate for a large part of the movie, for almost like another third of the movie, except in little bits or something. But
Mhm.
next up, we've got the SVR, who apparently, so this has come to the attention of the SVR. Again, Kieran Hines is playing the director of the SVR. Dominica's uncle Ivan is his second in command, the deputy director. I was never quite clear why Jeremy Irons was involved in this at all.
Mhm.
It seems like, as a general, I guess as a general, you could do whatever the fuck you want. But it just, I'm not sure what his role is. But clearly he seems like, a big heavy hitter, kind of guy. Now they're looking at the footage. They're showing it to Ivan, saying like, here, this is evidence. Like there's a mole in our organization, because we know that the man in the park, the unknown man in the park, was meeting with a known CIA agent. And that's why, like, even, this incident, like, might have been passed off or somehow, like, come to the FSB's notice. And then somehow, like, either the SVR noticed that, and it got passed up to the SVR somehow. That's fine.
Yeah.
But my question is, my question is, if Nate is a known CIA, why isn't he under constant surveillance?
Oh, that's a good point. Another reason why they should have a dead drop or a cutoff.
Right. Well, yeah. And also, it's my uh, uninformed, untechnical understanding, mostly from movies, but partly from the news too, is that, like, if you're CIA in Moscow and they know you're CIA, they have guys on you 24 fucking 7.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
I mean, they had that team of 6 guys on the Russian guy Nava something, like following him around for 9 months, just ready to, kill him at the moment Putin snapped his fingers. So, like,
Yeah.
the Russians are just known as, like, not being shy about, like, throwing manpower onto surveillance.
Yeah.
Um, and I also looked at it like, is there any way they could have figured out he was CIA after the incident? And there wasn't. So I'd just give it a little minus spy points there. There would be little dribbles here. And most of my minus spy points are run of the mill small issues with the movie. Overall, I think it's pretty dope. I do. Okay, I know we're in briefing room, and this maybe doesn't belong here and should have been mentioned before, but this is the right time to say it. Okay, so it's Jeremy Irons is playing the General Korknoy, and we will find out at the end of the movie, he is the mole. He is Marble. I totally blew my load when I looked at this scene again, because I wanted to go back at it and look at it again, knowing that Jeremy Irons is Marble. And there's such a hugely cool tell here where he, he's looking at the same footage they are, and he says, my question is, who is he? And then he pulls his right hand up and takes a big drag off of his cigarette. And the next cut in the movie is showing the grainy CCTV footage of the park, where the man is in the exact same angle, using the exact same motion, drawing a pull off his cigarette, partially to, like, conceal his face. And so it's just like great, cool plus director points. I love this kind of stuff. That just kind of subconsciously tells you, because it's the same guy. He's saying, like, who is he? Well, it's you, asshole. And the director's using just purely visual language to give us that clue, but it's so, there's no reason for us to suspect at that point, like that idea that it's him in the footage is nowhere close to crossing our minds at this point. So the
Yeah.
director can do something that fucking stunningly obvious when you look at it in hindsight. But instead of us like saying like, oh, I see what you're doing there. It's just maybe it's implanted subconsciously, or maybe it's just like a cool little Easter egg that the director is chuckling to himself in the editing room and saying like, ha ha ha, I'm so fucking clever. um, and that actually, I finally made my very first submission to imdb.com. I put that in trivia. I'm still waiting to hear if they're approving my write-up of it. But you know, as someone during this podcast that has become like such a big fan of IMDb and relies on IMDb so much, like this one was the first one that I feel like I was the one that figured it out, and just I just had to make my first submission. So we'll see if they take it.
Absolutely. I hope they approve it, because that's really cool that they put that in the film.
I think it's great.
When the embassy takes in Nate and they send him back home, he's meeting with his higher ups about everything that happened, and he wants to go back, and they obviously don't want to send him back because you know a lot of stuff's been blown. But he's saying, "Look, my guy won't work with anybody else." And you got to send me back. And then within like a few minutes, he like convinces them to send him back. I wanted to mark this as my number 2 worst tradecraft. Just the fact that it was too easy for him. Like he's already kind of blown the connection between him and someone. His face is probably on every system anywhere that the Russian intelligence agencies have reach, right? Clearly he's, even before when they said that he's a known CIA agent, he's now a very important CIA agent where Russian intelligence probably has him on a must-find list so they can get information off of him. So I would feel it'd be very high risk to send him back. I understand like his argument that the guy doesn't trust anybody, especially in like a communist country, and
especially at the level this guy is at.
And at the level this guy is at, right?
We don't know that at the time, but we'll find that out later.
Yeah, that guy's not going to work with anybody else, and that it's going to be difficult for the CIA to reestablish communications with him. But I just thought it was too easy for him to go back. And I know we needed to move the story along because it's already like what, 2 hours and 20-minute film.
I didn't catch the length actually. I kind of watched it in pieces.
Oh, okay, yeah. I like it. Just felt to me that one, he shouldn't have gone back, and if he did, they needed to like really put on like high security for him, so that some random assassin couldn't show up at his house and torture him. It's just I don't know. I didn't like it, and even though I get like story wise why it needed to happen.
Sure. I mean, so his pitch to the CIA anyways is that like you don't put me back in Russia, that would be too obvious, but if you put me in an adjacent region, somewhere where like maybe the eyes are not as
scrutinous or something.
Hey, nice word. I like it. So Budapest, let me just show up and go swimming and flash my pretty face around Budapest. And if they are really looking for me, then the SVR will notice that. And if the SVR notices that I'm in Budapest, then Marble will also notice and make contact. That's his best idea. I guess it kind of works, but I agree with you that they're not taking all the precautions I would like them to if this was the A story. But we're also, I mean, we're on the same page here. Like this is such the like B story. It's an important B story. it plays into everything, but it's not super important the movie nails down every fucking detail about this operation. It's just
Right.
important that we know the basics. And so that's cool, and why although I criticize the tradecraft, it doesn't reduce my enjoyment of the movie.
No, yeah.
He's correct, by the way, at least in the terms of this movie. The Russians do notice.
Yeah.
And so and I like the Russians. The Russians in this movie are definitely not played as fools.
No.
Even there's a couple times, and this is one, when they see something that like looks a little fishy, they say, "Okay, we'll maybe nibble at the hook, but we're going to do it with precautions."
Yeah.
And in this case, this precaution is that they're going to use a newly fledged sparrow, Dominica, and give her the job of going to Budapest to use her sexual wiles to get into his pants and get him to tell her all his secrets and I don't know, flip him or something. I don't know, get him.
They wanted her to get the name of the mole, if I recall correctly.
Right. So I guess she could accomplish that either by just getting close enough to him that she could rifle through his papers when he's not looking, or maybe even try to psychologically flip him.
Yeah.
Both of those could be options. So yeah, but so Dominica, enters Nate's life in that way. But I want to finish out some notes on Nate and Marble, just a few before we go back and talk about Dominica, who's of course the main character of our story.
Yeah.
Now, also, I mean, Nate was also correct, and Marble is sensibly has dropped off the radar. Like, he's not going to try to, contact Nate for what seems like possibly months, I could imagine, before he tries to attempt contact again. And that time, he sends, Nate another coded message, again using the antiquated encryption method, but this time wants to meet in Vienna. And we don't get to see Nate and Marble meeting in Vienna, but when Nate returns from that meeting, he's got information fingering Dominica as a sparrow, basically saying like, hey, just so you know, that pretty lady that you met at the pool is SVR. I already mentioned, that a bunch of other stuff happens, and it seems like Marble kind of diminishes in importance in the movie in a way that I found kind of weird, because I think at the end of the day, that's kind of one of the flaws in the movie, is like you're not sure what you're supposed to be paying attention to. You like, some things seem really important and then just seem to be dropped for a while. But eventually, near the end of the movie, he will reveal himself to Dominica and tell her that he's Marble, that he's the mole. I didn't like him doing that. We've had some recent conversations about spies just basically like sacrificing themselves on the altar for the greater cause. Generally, I'm anti that kind of behavior. Maybe it's just because it's not something I would do. To me, it just felt like a story trick of the movie to tell the audience, like to let the audience know that Dominica knows who the real mole is, which will become important. So I'm not trying to be super critical of his decision to, get up on that cross. I did kind of enjoy that.
The plan wasn't just for the greater good, right? Wasn't he going to have her out him so she could
Right.
become the new mole, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're already on the hunt for him. He's getting old. He's already kind of had his life. And like his idea is like, you could out me and then you'll be the hero and then you can take my place, right? But you're right. It's very important that she learns his identity here for later.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much like Marble's life story as it would have gone through if it hadn't been for Dominica coming through and being the chaos agent disruptor that she turns out to be. It would have just been a story about Nate and Marble having a close call, waiting several months, reestablishing contact in Vienna, and then everything would have been back to business as usual. That's not the story we're going to get. The reason is Dominica. So let's restart the movie where we see her come in and talk about her situation, starting with her interrupted career as a ballerina. Can you take over for me a little bit here?
Yeah, it starts out establishing her as like a very well-known ballerina, like probably like a top ballerina, which I guess is a big deal. But then in the middle of her performance, her partner drops her or she falls and breaks her leg, needs surgery, and she's probably not going to dance again. She receives some pictures and a recording of this other ballerina who's been sleeping with her partner and them discussing throwing her under the bus. So we find out that her partner kind of dropped her. What I was curious though was considering everything the uncle did to force her into becoming a sparrow. Do you think he planned this too?
It's a big question mark in my head
Yeah,
because it's him that gives her the information. I don't know, like, is that some kind of test? Of like what will my niece do if she finds out that she got fucked over in this way? And I mean, what she does is she goes and beats the shit out of him with a cane.
yeah, both of
Um,
them.
right. And that, like, I mean, if he was looking for like a compromise situation, I feel like that could have been enough.
uh,
But I don't know. I guess, let's see. At the end of the day, I don't think that scene was necessary. I can only imagine that the director thought the scene was necessary to demonstrate that Dominica is not someone to be fucked with, and maybe that her uncle Ivan wanted to find that out about her.
mhm.
Like what's the counterfactual? Like, if he had given her the information and she did nothing about it, like maybe he would have said like, well, she doesn't have the killer instinct, and that would have been his report, and he never would have like tried to
Recruited
run
her.
her through this
Yeah,
sparrow school. That's
yeah,
that's all like that's the best I can think of. But there I'm trying to make excuses for the movie for a scene which I just didn't really think it needed.
yeah. I kind of agree. This goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning about just how much the tone goes off the rails multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Where, yeah, like the movie starts out pretty brutal and fucked up, and it just keeps getting worse. Then it just goes off into like a whole different tone. I mean, the tension's always there as far as like what she's going through anxiety wise and being in this corner, but it just felt like there was a number of different directions, and this is one of the examples where not only is her like they when she's dropped, her leg is like bent where it shouldn't be bent, and it's a pretty like cringy moment, and then she beats the shit out of them, which is a little graphic, and then she goes to the Sparrow School, and that's when like, oh no, that's when she gets recruited by the uncle to seduce that one guy, and there's the rape scene and he's basically murdered. Yeah, it's one thing after another of graphic sexual assault type of stuff, and then it just completely changes tones and feels like a different direction. So
100%
it was
agree.
confusing. Yeah.
100% agree. Like, I remember again in the interviews I read that Jennifer Lawrence said she was so excited about playing this character, and like she really loved the character and the motivations and the spirit behind her and all that. And through half of the movie, almost 2/3 of the movie, I was not seeing whatever Jennifer Lawrence was seeing in this character. In the last third,
Yeah.
they land the plane.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They definitely land the plane. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so she's got one more test she's got to do, be put through before she's actually put in the Sparrow School, right?
Yeah.
The uncle, basically, so the SVR, or at least the uncle, I don't know if maybe he's doing it on the side. We never find out why the head of the Bolshoi, and that is the ballet company. And I think, I didn't check it, but I think the Bolshoi specifically is like the, you said a minute ago, like, being the top ballerina, like, I guess that's some kind of big deal. Like in Russia, it is a very big fucking deal.
Yeah. Right.
That's just one of their things, like chess and ballet. They take very seriously.
Yeah.
We never find out why he's a target. We never find out. I don't like the way that they arranged this assassination of him. Okay, so big public figure, right? If the Bolshoi if ballet is super important in Russia and it's all state run, and if I'm correct that the Bolshoi is basically like the head, like the government head of government ballet, this is a really tricky target. This is not someone you just like murder at the local McDonald's bathroom.
Yeah. Right.
But the way they go about it is basically, basically they're going to have their murderer. I just have him written as the heavy. I will mention the actor's name real quick. Let me go up and grab it, cause it's kind of cool. Sebastian Hulk is the heavy. What a great name if you're going to be the heavy in some movies and go around like beating the shit out of people and torturing them and strangling them. Awesome name. Good job on your agent there. But basically he just needs to, he's going to garrot the head of the Bolshoi, and all they need for that to happen is for the guy's security to be like slightly outside the room. And just overall, I still feel like there's a million better ways to pull off this assassination, and that the way that it's framed in the movie was just to get her involved, and again, just to give her some fucking motivation to hate her uncle. I don't think this is how you would do it.
Oh, they needed the guard out. And since the dude was getting laid, he didn't want the guard in the room. So I think that's the strategic reason for this. But I agree, there's probably some other options. But the idea for her uncle is now she's a witness to this murder, which makes her a risk to the state because they can't have anybody knowing that the state was responsible for murdering this guy. And that's how he's able to leverage her into becoming a Sparrow. Because he told her, just do this one thing and you'll be fine. And, that of course is a lie. You're going to do this one thing and then you'll be done. We'll take care of your moms. Oh, my hands are tied. The state thinks you're a risk. You got to become a Sparrow. And if you do that, someday you and your mom can live peacefully and be taken care of. Like, he's constantly using the stick and carrot of losing her mom or keeping her mom safe with this to keep her on the track that he's planned for her since she was a girl or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Not a fan. Ready to move on.
Yeah.
It's accomplishing what the story needs to be accomplished, which is to set her uncle up as this like super villain that she obviously like has great reason to despise and hate. So she runs off to school. Now, the guy that wrote this movie, let me double check my note on this. He we've talked about the fact, like, I think we know that Fleming and who's our boy?
John Le Carre.
Right. They actually didn't spend that much time in intelligence before they went on to their novelist careers. Jason Matthews, the writer of this book, and he was also retained as a tech advisor for the film. He's at the end of a 33-year tenure with the CIA. So we would presume So we would presume he knows his shit.
Yeah.
The school itself, okay, like the Sparrow program, I think we kind of definitely believe in. I don't think it looks like this. I don't think it looks like Hogwarts. I don't think this is like.
That's an interesting way to put it. Considering the teacher wanted her to fuck the guy that tried to rape her.
Yeah.
But yeah, the school does kind of have a old, cathedral feel to it architecturally. Yeah. But that's fun.
Right. I mean, it's very slimy, very cringy. I don't think I think it's one of the parts of the movie that didn't land for me or for other audiences the way the director thought it would.
Right.
I'll just kind of say that. Although, I mean, some of the principles that they're discussing about, like, like, this is a great quote. I think a semi quote from the matron, like, physical manipulation is not enough. Love is to be seen and to be recognized. Like, that's a good, like, they're really talking about, like, or at least with that line, talking about, like, how you actually get your screws into someone.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just
like the
lie
one thing
back.
that everyone's, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
then figuring out how they feel they get that. Like, everybody wants to be recognized for who they are and wants validation, right? But every different person has a different way. And
everyone is a puzzle of needs.
Right. And then finding that missing piece, and you give them that piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I like the psychology there, but it doesn't pay off in the movie. Like, that's a setup without a payoff.
Yeah.
I guess I'll mention now, like, I'll skip ahead now to Dominica and Nate. She initiates a sexual contact with him on 2 occasions, neither of which seem to be necessary whatsoever.
Or successful.
Well, I'm sure he got off on it. I mean, how are you measuring success there?
Well, like, he brushed her off. The first time he was like, I think you should go home. And the second time, when she played damsel in distress, I think he picked up on it.
Right.
Yeah.
I just like, when I say it's a setup without a payoff, like, I never understood how Joel Edgerton was actually being played by her. You know what I mean?
She wasn't.
Like,
yeah, I think because he had the information that she was a Sparrow, as well as being a veteran of this type of stuff. I mean, their file on him was that he was like the type of bro that's just trying to sleep with girls all the time. So her attractiveness caught his attention, but I think, interacting with her, he picked up on the fact that she was a honey trap. So I don't think he was ever manipulated in the way that she was planning on manipulating him. And I think that him being straightforward with her is what helped flip her. That he never really tried to manipulate her.
I like that take.
Yeah.
I like that take, because that's what I mean by, like, there wasn't really any payoff there. Like, I don't think she ever successfully played him, but maybe you're right. Like, maybe that was her intention going in, because she doesn't know the guy,
Yeah.
And so that's how she's trying to play it. But then when she finds out, like, no, this is actually a fucking kind of a stand-up guy that's, on Team Blue, maybe I don't have to but then so of course that would make him even more irresistible to her.
Yeah.
So then that's why she fucks him the second time.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that helps, but I'm still gonna call it. I'm gonna still call them fucking my number 3 worst tradecraft in the film. As soon as he knows she's a sparrow and knows what kind of training she's got, then the first time she tries to fuck him should like set off all the red alarms in his head.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All of them, every single one.
Yeah.
And then I flip it to like even worse, like because at that point, like they know who each other are. You know, they're not really being very dishonest with each other.
No.
At all.
Like he flat out tells her, "I saw you on the train." Like he clocked her from the get go. You know, also demonstrating what a veteran he is, and she doesn't deny it. You know, she kind of was like, "No, I think you have me mistaken." But as soon as like she picks up that he got her license, I think she knows that he knows, and he knows that she knows, and that's when it starts out. I think that's like the first real relationship she had. You know what I mean? With someone where it wasn't like deception and manipulation like she's used to. Because in the ballerina world, I presume it's like gymnastics and like figure skating where everybody's like out to stab you in the back, right?
I'm sure it's 100 times worse.
Yeah. Well, especially in Russia, right? And then she ends up being put in this like crazy manipulation school. And here this guy and her really know each other ish, you know, kind of, you know, they know that they're both agents, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. I did want to mark my number 3 best tradecraft with this kind of interaction with them though. When he kind of flips her into convincing her like, look, you could get away, like I would never do this to you, clearly an uncle shouldn't do this to her niece. He gives her the story to take back to them, where he's just like, just tell him that I'm trying to get daddy's attention, and you know, like, what does he say? I have this written down. But she basically gives her the cover story, which you have to know. Yeah, tell them I hate my father and I have something to prove, right?
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Oh, and I drink too much.
And I drink too much, right? So, like, you know, for her to actually like go back and have that cover story really helps her. You know what I mean? It's not like
let's give him some plus 5 points for that. Like he's definitely like he wants to cloak himself in vulnerability so that she'll look good.
Right. Yeah. So I just wanted to mark that as my number 3 best tradecraft.
Dope. It's my number 2 best tradecraft of the film. Which I mean we've kind of crossed this ground a little bit, but they don't. I mean they dance around each other a little bit, but neither of them is really trying to fool the other person into like, I'm not a secret agent. What are you talking about? I'm just a fucking. I just like to swim. You know, what are you talking about? Like they tease each other with pieces of information that they have on each other. And by doing so, they're communicating to one another that they want to play ball. They want to get in bed together. And not in the physical sense, but in the, you know, let's make a deal kind of sense.
Yeah.
And even though they're clearly, you know, because they're on, Team Blue and Team Red. They're holding things back. But I don't remember us seeing. I know a lot of movies and TV shows we've talked about where we've watched one agent like manipulate either a civilian or even like another member of a rival intelligence agency. But I don't think we've ever seen a situation where both people are just actively manipulating each other, but also doing so by telling truths to each other in a way that I thought was just kind of very cool.
It was,
because they are correctly achieving their objectives by doing so.
yeah. I think Nate pointed out when she used her real name on the form and her ID and her passport were different. He mentioned to his superiors that he thinks he can flip her because that was kind of like a cry for help from her. Because you notice she writes her fake name, then throws it away and writes her real name. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. Little kind of like wink from her end to them, you know.
Yeah, they're signaling to each other.
Yeah,
I like it. Now, for some reason, they've housed, like, as part of her Budapest operation, where the SVR has tasked her to try to flip Nate. They've housed her with a, quote unquote veteran Sparrow. At least that's the way she's represented in like Wikipedia. Did you get the idea that Marta was a more experienced agent? I mean, she does seem to give some older sister kind of advice.
yeah, she did. She did say you didn't think you were the only one. So I think that she has been a Sparrow for a lot. You know, she quotes like the Sparrow puzzle piece quote type of thing, right? And then she's out seducing like an American politician, I think, for information. So I think she's a more, just from the age difference and the things that she mentions, I think it's pretty implied that she's like the more experienced Sparrow.
Right. And she's running, like you said, like she's running a different ops. So you got two agents in the same house, like running different ops, and the SVR hasn't informed either of them of what the other is doing, it seems like. Seems a little like strangely sus. But what's more sus to me is the fact that, okay, so Dominica, at times when Marta is out of the apartment, Dominica finds basically the evidence of what Marta's operation is, which is to, convince Marie Louise Parker, who is a U.S. Senator's chief of staff, and to avoid mouthfuls later, I'm just going to call her MLP. But that she's got that operation underway, and Dominica lies to her uncle and tells him that that she's part of Marta's operation against MLP. This is my number 2 worst tradecraft of the film. I don't understand how the SVR could be so incompetent as to not know who's doing what in this respect.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Like in stuff we've seen, like from the Americans, seems much more realistic, where pretty detailed reports are given on this kind of thing. And I don't think Marta is, I don't want to say qualified, but authorized to like involve other unrelated agents in her operation without reporting that to her superiors. So I think that's one of my biggest problems with the like integrity of the plot of the movie. And meanwhile, Dominica's station chief is, a slimy dickhead. She frames him for assault. When she finds out that, after rejecting his sexual advances, he's giving unfavorable reports back to Moscow on him. And then she tells, Marta does find out that, she does overhear that Dominica is trying to like kind of hijack and say like, oh, I'm part of this operation too, Uncle Ivan. She's just going to get mad about that and then play that out as, well, okay. She confronts Dominica. Dominica says, well, listen, there's one thing. Can you do you have this for me? Like, Dominica, Marta says, like, well, what do they have on you? Dominica tells her, and it's I was a witness to the murder of the head of the
Yeah.
Bolshoi. You can't
Yeah.
tell anyone because they would fucking kill you. And
Right.
then what does Marta do? She tells someone, and then they
Yeah.
kill her.
Yeah.
That's my number one. I mean, definitely just on specific. Marta, you have to know better than this. Like, just you going to the section chief and saying, like, I know how to get rid of Katerina. Like, this is really this this is really bullshit that I can't swallow. This is my number one worst for raisins. There's all sorts of other ways that Marta could have could have should have gone to the section chief and said, like, hey, do you have any idea why Dominica is telling her uncle that she's part of this operation that you and I have been working on? Like,
Yeah.
or is she like it made no sense that she chose that route. And I think the movie kind of maybe wants us to believe that Dominica gave her that information, kind of, psychologically knowing what Marta would do with it, but that's also bullshit.
No, yeah, I don't think she was trying to get Marta killed. I think she was reaching out to Marta because I think the reason Dominica hijacked that is because Marta tells her, you're only important if you have something they need. So she, I think, plots this idea. Oh, I can get this person because her uncle's claiming that she's expendable and she's taking too much time, and they're going to kick her out. And then I think that the SVR did know about Marta's operation, and the fact that Dominica brought it up to the uncle is what led to them killing her, because they said you don't give out secrets, and that was like the warning. You know what I mean? But you're right. A lot of this is convoluted, and I don't understand why it becomes. I think the movie just wants us to have this scene, and I don't think it was played out very, very well.
Yeah, I agree. I also want to throw out some minus spy points for the fact of, in my opinion, the Russians killing Marta in this instance just as a warning to
Yeah,
Dominica, and
yeah.
later in the film killing the section chief as a warning to Dominica. Like, they look good on paper. They're good scenes, I guess. I mean, they're gripping, they're exciting, they raise the blood pressure, but I don't think they really make sense in terms of.
I completely
Please.
agree. I actually
Thank you.
marked this as my number one worst tradecraft. I'm skipping ahead quite a bit for this. I'll just talk about it later. But yeah, let's just talk about the warning. This warning they give J-Law, and then the shooting warning. And the shooting you're talking about follows them torturing her. I completely disagree with this decision by them. They're trying to
Yeah.
use fear to manipulate her. And I think this is going to drive her to flip, which is clearly not.
Also, I don't think she's as valuable or important as their actions would indicate.
Yeah.
Well, with Marta also kind of conveniently out of the way, which is, I think, a little bit of flaw in the story. Like, I think the story, like, I mean, it's a good story overall. It just takes a few shortcuts that I kind of don't appreciate. And the fact of Marta dying for this, like, stupid reason, that gives J-Law or Dominica latitude to, piggyback this operation, which the SVR, like, obviously should know about. Like, it's just raisins to give Dominica, like, the room she needs to maneuver with to make the ending of the story make sense. But the MLP operation, if I guess we should run over the details on it. MLP is a chief of staff of a U.S. senator. She's got files on a very sensitive satellite defense program that the Russians are super interested in, and She's a drunk with a deadbeat husband that, obviously has high ambitions for her daughter, and can't make her daughter's, presumably like Ivy League type tuition payments. So that's why she's in it, for the money. And maybe a little bit of the thrill, and definitely just to, get drunk and stuff.
Yeah. Wasn't it implied she might be a lesbian? Because I think Marta and her got kind of flirty by the bathrooms, right?
I mean, there's some photographs that make it look like that.
Yeah.
And Marta, being an experienced Sparrow, we would presume that if MLP has some leanings in that direction, that Marta would have learned from the school how to like nudge those leanings in the right kind of way. And
right.
And but it doesn't actually look like she's being set up with that like kind of compromise. It does look like she's just like, in it for the money. I mean, 250,000, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a decent chunk anyways. So Dominica is telling Nate about this stuff, and that's the reason, even though Nate had been told several times by his CIA handlers, like, you're just there to do one simple fucking job, which is to make contact with Marble. Dominica hands him something so juicy that his CIA handlers say, well, we can't pass on that. And then on the Russian side, I guess on the Russian side,
well, the whole thing with MLP, the Russians and the CIA want that moment. The CIA are getting handed a traitor, right? And then the Russians are getting the discs. The CIA have her switch the discs, and the Russians are believing that she's retrieving the discs. And
right.
And that's what makes that scene so interesting, because she now has to play both sides. Because when her station chief shows up, she's not just working with the CIA. She now has to do everything in front of him without becoming suspicious, which involves swapping out the discs.
Both Dominica and Nate are going outside of their purview, their normal purview, convincing their superiors that this needs to happen. This MLP situation needs to be resolved, each with a different agenda. I guess for her, it's just to have an opportunity to, I mean, for him, the motivation is obvious.
Yeah.
We gotta nip this in the bud. We can't have MLP selling satellite shit too. But for her, she needs this to go down the way it does, because actually this is where it gets really weird, because she actually wants to have herself fall under suspicion, and then survive a shitload of like torture and beatings, after being taken back to Moscow in a fashion in which will advance her agenda. How exactly again?
I don't know that she was trying to come under suspicion. I mean, her plan was to hand MLP over to the CIA. Then the station head shows up, so she had to improvise. She had a long, drawn-out plan to throw her uncle under the bus. And I think with this situation, the station head added a whole wrench into her plan of trying to defect to the CIA type of thing. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I don't think she purposely tried to get caught and get tortured. And I think that she just got stuck in a situation that she had to kind of, take the punches as they kind of came. And when she's taken to the airport and Nate wants to save her and she shakes her head at him, you know,
It's a very good. It's a very good, super subtle, great fucking no shake.
yeah. She could have just ran away. She could have defected, but that doesn't exactly solve the problem, right? She remember. I think we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that she's trying to get revenge on her uncle, right?
Yeah,
Um, and at this point, she doesn't know who the mole is. I don't think she ever planned to find out unless Nate just handed it to her. You know, I think she might just be a survivalist at this point. You know what I mean? But she has this overarching plan to fuck her uncle over, right? But her being pulled over to the airport, she could have escaped, but then she's not getting a revenge type of thing. And I think that's what the movie wants us to think, that she has to go back.
right. I mean, the airport is a great opportunity for her to break and just make a run for it. So the fact she doesn't do that, like, it does seem like, the movie wants me to believe that she always planned for herself to be thrown back into the lion's den.
Well, I think if she ran away, she wouldn't be able to get at her uncle. And so that's why she willingly went. Because she didn't plan on the station head showing up. At that point, I think she was planning on the CIA getting MLP and her deal being done at that point. You know what I mean? But when the station head shows up, I'm guessing she wanted more. Actually, the
Right,
more
but
I'm chatting this out, it doesn't make sense. I think the movie's
because
forcing all
because
this to happen.
because at the end of the movie we get this montage where we've seen all of her master planning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but her master planning was implicating her uncle.
yes.
Because the
Which again,
250,000.
but that's what you're saying. Like, if she makes the break right now, which she could do,
Right, yeah.
then that plan is, so I mean, maybe it's a case of like, well, I mean, I had plan A going, and then, but I also had plan B just in case, blah blah blah. So I was always ready for all situations. But I don't know. To me, it thinks I think we're meant to believe that she always intended to get caught here. And I don't like it, but that's just my read.
I don't think that's what I'm saying. I don't think she could plan to get caught, but I think you're right. The big master plan was her to throw her uncle under the bus. Because remember, she didn't plan on the station head. Well, I think we should move
Okay,
on
hold on.
because
Wait.
I think it
Actually,
doesn't. I think the movie doesn't make sense at all. Like at this point, right here. I think it's all just kind of.
I want to dig in a little.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let's say station chief. Let's do the counterfactual. Let's say station chief doesn't show up.
Yeah.
She's still gonna swap the discs. She's
Right.
still gonna arrive to her Russian handlers saying like, "Hey, I've got this great information." Oh, what? Oh, the discs are blank. I didn't know. And the CIA grabbed MLP. Oh my God. I definitely didn't think Joel Edgerton was that smart.
That's what I'm saying. I think the movie forced all of this in.
Okay.
Because the more we talk about it, the more I think the story wanted us to think that she willingly went back through the airport. But I'm wondering if she saw the opportunity, because she didn't plan on the station head coming, right?
That's
what I'm saying.
true.
I think the movie, changes its direction and then just kind of have this whole master plan of her throwing her uncle under the bus. I think there's a lot of gaps that don't make sense.
I know that you're probably just looking at your notes like
Yeah.
I am, and so you can't
Yeah.
see my video, but like I'm giving you like huge thumbs up and like mad like fucking head nods on this. So but yeah, I mean, do we need to talk about I could go to Domenica's final plan and lay that out. But I thought we were trying to angle around to warning J-Law, torture J-Law, your worst tradecraft number one. Or do we have that in
that's
hand?
right. I mean, I already kind of explained, this is going to push her to defecting. The like you had said, the warning doesn't help, both warnings don't help. But the torture itself, like, here she is, like if she didn't have this plan and wasn't working with Nate, she would be like a hero, right? And she's like holding it in, right? And here they are torturing her when she didn't do anything wrong. It just, like, let's say the whole Nate plan and her fucking her uncle over, in her mind, she's just doing her due diligence, which is what she told her uncle, that, hey, I'm gonna get information from this contact we made from America, right? Well, if that's the case, then she would have just been doing her due diligence, and it just so happened that the CIA picked up on it, and they caught MLP, right? And here she is getting tortured when she did her job. You know what I mean? So all of the things that they're doing with the warnings and the torture and all this stuff is gonna make her want. Like, I think they're using fear to manipulate her, but I think at this point, after everything she's been through, they are they're basically giving her a reason to defect. So by accusing her of being a traitor and, like, basically fucking beating the fuck out of her, right? Yeah. And why, when they asked the station head the same question and they killed him, why did they kill him and not her? Why is it that
makes no sense to me?
Other than she still could get the name of the mole from Nate.
I mean, that section chief, I mean, maybe he's a fuck up, but in ways that we didn't see. He's more valuable than she is.
Well, not if she can find the mole.
And also, like, just like the question that the interrogator keeps asking is like, I forget, there was a code name for MLP. I don't remember what it was. But like, okay, right. Did you give up Swan? Did you give up Swan? Did you give up Swan? Like, at this point, to me, like, finding out, like, getting a yes out of her, like, doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
If you feel like, she's a threat and she's under suspicion, like, you don't believe anything she's going to say. Just fucking kill her.
Right.
And you don't have to kill, again, like, the section chief, he seemed like maybe he wasn't great at his job, possibly, but I didn't see the evidence of that to make it, like, so worth it for them to kill him just to find out, can we trust Jennifer Lawrence? Because I don't think she's valuable enough for them, or that information of whether or not she, like, who, let's not argue about who betrayed whose operation. Let's not sit and argue about it. It just doesn't seem like they're getting anything out of it, and they're just pulling triggers like fucking crazy. Same, and that was back to my thing with the Marta thing. It came close to making one of my top tradecraft. It was on my list of, like, just the Russians just fucking killing people left and right just to make a point without getting any value out of it.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we got that tied up.
Yeah.
Domenica's final plan is convoluted. I don't have all the super details on it, but it's the star of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
She really doesn't give a shit about anything except fucking her uncle over.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get a montage at the end of the film. We also get a really great, I think, a great moment that presages what's going on, where she tells Ivan, you were right. I am like you, uncle.
Yeah.
Because that's something he said to her earlier, but she means it in an entirely different way.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. Overall, I mean, I like the fact, like, just the idea of framing the uncle. is my number 3 best tradecraft of the film. It's wonderfully ambitious.
Mhm.
Some of the details about how she goes about it could be questionable, but I'll give it that my top number 3.
That actually made my number 1 was throwing her uncle under the bus.
Mm.
Yeah, I as much as the movie kind of forced a lot of it, it made my number 1. But also mixed with Marble passing the torch to her.
Okay. I mean, I think you agree with me, like that ambition of hers, like
Yeah.
her aim is fraught with possibilities of it going wrong, and also like maybe fraught with coincidences that just happen to play into her favor.
Yeah.
But when we get the final montage, it's very satisfying, and I think that's why. I mean, that's why I say like that reveal is the star of the film. If you like this film, that's why you like this film.
Yeah.
is because that shit is kind of fucking genius.
Yeah.
Some of the details along the way, whatever, but I will put out one of the details as my number 1 best tradecraft of the movie, which is the manner in which she arranges the fake account in her uncle's name.
Yeah.
She does this in Vienna, and it's not clearly stated in the film, but if you look at it, it's fucking brilliant. You know, like, okay, as a Sparrow, she's learned, you know, the first thing we see, like, you know, she's looking through the window, like who in this bank, like, might be vulnerable. Hey, there's this one guy, right? And he's just the right amount of sexy that he might think that I was maybe, you know, and me, I'm sexy fucking Jennifer Lawrence. So you got to find the right guy too, you know. You can't. Well, maybe you can find the sludge dude,
Yeah.
that has never known a woman's touch, and maybe he'll fall for your tricks. But she picks the right kind of age and attractiveness of the guy that might believe that, like, she's like, oh my god, oh, you just closed? No, I really need this. Can I buy you a coffee? Can we, you know, oh, I understand you can't let me into the bank. Oh, that sucks. What are we gonna do? Maybe could you just help me, like, fill out the paperwork? Maybe you go into the bank. And so the point of that is like that she can arrange creating this bank account, and there's no CCTV records, like there's no, her fingerprints aren't on it.
Yeah. It's just his name, which she used his when he came over. By the way, I call bullshit on that someone of his caliber would just leave his coat unattended, especially with like 2 other people in the room, and like he knows how much his niece hates him. But she pulls out his passport and memorizes his passport number and uses that for the bank. What's it called? The bank forms that she fills out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good catch. I didn't catch that, but good one. Good one.
But I'm completely on board with that. Like, just the way that she targeted the guy at the bank, used this kind of fake story, and then fills out the form with him, and then is able to put it under her uncle's name for the $250,000 that she's going to get from the Americans, right? You know, that's one of the biggest nails in the coffin, that she basically is able to throw her uncle under the bus.
Right. I mean, I'm a little iffy that you know, the CIA just hands her the $250,000, but you know, moving on.
Yeah. I wanted to mark this as my number 1 best tradecraft, and the bank was a big part of it. But just how it more had to do with the mole. Not only did she get her personal revenge, as far as like the story of the movie being like a revenge film, but like the just Marble passing the torch. He saw everything she went through and what her uncle put her through, and he also saw he's an old man. He's done what he could to save the world or whatever, and it's getting down to the wire, right? And he's seeing this as an opportunity that he can't see any other option, that he needs to protect her because the pressure's coming down on her, and they're trying to find out the name of the mole. And he doesn't have very much time left, right? So this way she could come back as a hero and, replace him as the mole and, continue saving the world type of thing. But she looks at it as an opportunity to fuck her uncle over and protect the mole and be a new mole. You know what I mean? Which I liked. I liked quite a bit.
I mean, she walks away with everything.
Yeah.
which is really dope.
Yeah.
She walks away being kind of a hero to the Americans, a hero to her supposed, I don't know how can you tell if like she ever actually had any. Well, actually no, you do. The movie does leave you the final clue that she does have affection for Nate with that final phone call.
Uh-huh.
But so she's getting that out of it. Her uncle's fucked over. She has protected
her mother.
Marble.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, Marble. Yeah.
Right. She's protected Marble. So Marble's still in place.
Yeah.
And also she did it all without selling out. And this is why I think the mother thing is important. In the end, she did it all for Russia.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like she's still not a traitor,
right?
In the traditional sense. She's secured what her mother deserves from the Russian state. The stable life that the Russian, like even in a post-communist regime, the Russian state, promises to its citizens.
Yeah.
And also, like, she's a decorated hero. She could do all sorts of shit from here. But I don't think we'll see a sequel for this. I would not. I would be actually pretty angry if someone tried to make a sequel out of this one.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, though, like kind of sort of similar femme fatale movies like Atomic Blonde and Salt. Like I want like as much as you can give me. Like bring that shit back. But Red Sparrow, I think, is like tied down. And speaking of tying down.
That's right. We kind of skipped this part, but there's a scene where she's meeting with Nate, and she wakes up, and a Russian assassin is there to basically torture and question Nate because she's not getting the information fast enough. I marked this as my best tradecraft number 2. When she sees what's going on, she helps tie Nate down because the assassin is basically choking him. I don't know how he got Nate out of bed in his underwear, sitting on the table with a tourniquet around his neck, sitting in the chair. But let's pretend he somehow got this to happen. But she comes in and zip ties his legs and his hands, Nate's. So her plan wasn't to continue torturing him. Her plan was to basically convince this assassin torture guy that she's on his side and wait for a moment of weakness when he has an opening where she can strike. And he has this, like, he said it's used for skin grafting, but he uses it basically
it's horrific.
Yeah, to basically like peel layers of skin off of Nate, and it looks very painful. But she's talking shit to Nate, like, tell us who the mole is. And he's not answering. So she asks the torture guy to give him the skin thing, and she skins Nate's leg, right? So this made my best tradecraft number 2 for playing the like full blast werewolf role to convince this guy to let his guard down to when he does let his guard down, she fucking takes a swing at him with the thing, basically cuts Nate's like zip ties open. Now they're all stabbing each other. I mean, like, you know, everybody gets hurt and cut up, but this made my best tradecraft number two, that she basically tied Nate down, totally sold the fact that she's not a traitor and is straight up torturing Nate, you know, and stone cold face too. Like just she obviously has affection for Nate and just completely fucking just unaffected by the fact that this person she kind of cares about is being like fucking tortured, you know.
Yeah, I mean, she's hard as a coffin nail. It turns out.
Yeah. Well, considering what she went through, it's not far-fetched.
Well, I mean, different people would have responded to what she went through in different ways.
That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, it turns out like she's got a heart of stone. She can definitely pull that kind of shit off. I wasn't sure in her situation that my first move after knocking the assassin down, I wasn't sure my first move would have been trying to help Nate out of his bonds.
Yeah.
I think I would have been like clocking that fucker with everything I had.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, the violence in this movie is kind of weird. Like a lot of it involves nudity, you know, from the first scenes, you know, when she gets her revenge on her ballet partner and her betrayer. Like that was kind of like, I don't know, very visceral, meaty, awful. This last scene too was also just very, very horrific.
Yeah.
In a movie that like was otherwise like very mostly nonviolent. You know, I mean, it's not a shooting movie. You know,
No.
it's not a car chase movie. It's not a Jason Bourne movie.
Fire a gun? I think Nate firing the distraction gun is the only guns we get. Oh no, that's right. They shoot the station head.
Oh yeah, but that was on like a, you know, on a computer screen kind of thing. But you know, like it's not car chasey, it's not shooty, it's not actiony. The few moments of violence are very, I don't know, just very disturbing.
Yeah.
and again, like often seem to involve naked people.
Yeah.
Which adds to the kind of horror of it. Like, I don't know, like seeing bodies as meat, you know, suffering trauma and stabbing and stuff. It's just kind of weird. I'm not sure. I don't have anywhere to go with that. I got 2 more notes before debriefing, and then I'll check with you and see what you got. I don't think the trade, this goes back to like her whole master plan being a little bit flawed, even though like I applaud it when it happens. You know, her eventual setup is like, okay, we'll trade. She's fingered Ivan as the mole. So SVR, Karen Hines is like, fuck you, Ivan. We got everything on you. Blah blah blah. You're definitely the mole. And then like she's supposedly like in the hands of the Americans. And the final scene that the like on the airport tarmac is they're gonna trade him for her. I don't see that as in any way a good trade on the SVR's part.
Oh yeah, no. There's no reason to give. Yeah. What are they going to get their one agent, especially when they have no problem killing all of their agents, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. She's not as valuable as being able to use the mole as an example to the Russian people.
Right. Or just like, you know, put him in the cell and like spend like the next 3 years finding out everything he fucking knows and everything that he told the Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't give him up. It's a dick move, but if I'm the SVR, like I'm like Dominica, who? Fuck you.
Yeah. Right.
we got our guy.
Yeah.
And then my last note was that so we got to mention the Metka. We skipped over that a little bit. There was the school sequence, which was not my favorite part of the film. I think this film really picks up in its final third. But in the school sequence, when I was making notes of like, the spycraft or the tradecraft that they're actually teaching people, this Metka thing comes up. And I mentioned it as seeming to be like, to me, the only like really actually kind of cool thing that they taught, which is this idea. And it's a little confusing. I mean, they say they can key it to a specific person's chemistry or something, but they can see what you touched in a way that clearly is just demonstrated by using a black light. And I went digging around and I couldn't find evidence that actually exists or exists in the way, but it is part of her montage of how she like literally like put all the evidence against her uncle into place so that they would know like exactly, or they would think they knew exactly where he was and when in different places, in the way that all feeds into her master plan. Again, like the author of this film, 33 years in CIA, I imagine that there's something like this existing, but probably I would think like the version that he put in his book, because don't we believe that like basically all ex-CIA people, like if they go out and write a book, like the CIA comes out and says like, hey, can we take a read on this real quick?
Mm-hmm.
We do believe that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I believe something like this exists, but probably not in the way it's demonstrated in the film. Although, while I was researching that on the internet, that's when I found out that semen, that's another thing that is famously like apparently like, lit up by blacklight.
Yeah.
That there were agents that used semen as secret ink
Yeah.
during World War II.
Well, we posted that article on the Facebook. I think you found that article. It was so funny.
Well, that's how I found it, was like
Yeah.
trying to figure out if this Metka thing was important or not. But I applaud the movie for bringing that to our attention and for it becoming part of her master plan. I mean, I think maybe like more realistically, she could have done it with like DNA kind of stuff, but this is done in a way that like in movie language, and you have a short amount of time and you have to visually tell the story. This really worked for me. And also Vienna was kind of weird. I'm going to mention that too.
It was only in there specifically for her to create the bank account. Is Vienna like the Russian Switzerland or something? I think Switzerland is the Switzerland for everybody, right? Why would he have the bank in? The only reason she went to Vienna was specifically to make the bank account. Right.
And that would only make sense if she knew her uncle was going to go to Vienna, and that would only make sense if she knew that. And I don't actually know how that makes sense, but we know that Nate and Marble were going to meet in Vienna, but we were never told how she knew that. So just the timing on that, Vienna was a little bit weird and a little bit of a, I'll accept it for the movie.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe I missed something because we have found a few things in this movie where like when you go back and look at it, it makes way more sense than you thought it did. So it's very possible. I'm open to believing that there might be some things that we missed.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Right? Because
yeah,
some of the clues in this movie were very subtle. So
yeah,
I'm not 100% sure that I caught everything at all.
yeah. In fact, like
But
even though we didn't like the warnings, I'm wondering if the uncle killed the roommate and the station head just to protect her, to make her his perfect spy girl. You know what I mean? I,
or
I
maybe
and,
or oh
and just
wait, or
took the
maybe just
opportunity.
because he legitimately wanted to protect her as a member of his family. That's also a possibility. Might have
Right,
been in
there's
the
that.
book, wasn't in the movie.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, I'm sure there's something that we might have missed or something in the book because it's looking back, some stuff's kind of fishy.
I mean, he does give her that final kiss on the cheek at the end, even knowing
Yeah,
that she's absolutely destroyed him. So there might be some of that to it too.
yeah.
Agents, please report for debriefing on this operation. The director will see you now.
So we're gonna take this like all our movies and TV shows. There's 2 ratings we're gonna give. Well, really 3. There's gonna be our star rating. That's just how much we personally like the film. And then we're gonna come together and collaborate on our park bench rating. And that'll be how realistic we found the film to be in its representation of tradecraft. On star rating, can you tell me how much you like this movie? 1 to 5.
It was definitely a surprise for me because I when I first tried to watch it when it hit video forever ago, I couldn't make it past like 10 minutes, I think, and it definitely won me over, like actually watching it. But I still think that it wasn't. It just was really confusing, and like, yeah, the end twist explains what's going on, but it doesn't. It still doesn't explain the tonal shifts throughout the story. Um, and yeah, so I'm probably gonna go with like a 3.5 here because it was definitely like a surprise, and there's a lot about the movie that I really appreciate, just as an experience. But I don't. I want to go a little above average on this, but I definitely don't want to put it up there. I don't. It didn't blow me away. Let's just say that.
I'm just gonna go a tiny bit lower and just give it a flat 3.
Yeah.
And for much of the same reasons, there's an underlying plot and some great twists. Like the final third of the movie is so much better than the first third. But I've seen movies do, twists before where I didn't feel as lost
Right.
during the experience.
Yeah.
And I mean, in a way that made the final twists more satisfying, but it
Right.
didn't make up to me for the experience of watching the kind of muddle of the regular. Yeah, flat 3, just right down the middle. My best tradecraft of the film. My number 3 best, just the idea of framing Ivan. It's audastic. It's we've talked about like a lot of the ways like it could have gone wrong, and maybe where like J-Law might have been wearing a little bit of plot armor
Yeah.
in pulling it off.
Yeah.
But just the notion is fantastic, and one of the, I mean, it's the star of the film. Tradecraft wise, number 2, I don't think I've seen 2 spies that are like, instead of one just trying to play the other, like they're both trying to play each other, but they're also signaling to each other so earnestly that they want to get in bed together. Again, not literally, even though they do that as well. And my number one best is the way she opened the account in Vienna.
My best tradecraft, my number three, was Nate giving J Law the story when he convinces her to flip. And he's just tell him I hate my father. I have something to prove, and I drink too much. I think that's very important, and I don't think we see that even mentioned very often. They're just like, we're flipping you, and then they flip. You know what I mean? I would like to believe it's much more organized when you really flip someone. So I kind of liked that. Number two best tradecraft was when the assassin or torture guy comes to like get information out of Nate. Dominica basically comes and helps the torturer to like wait for opening from him. So she basically, without even batting an eye, and like just stone cold, like helps torture Nate. And then when the opening presents itself, she basically like knocks out the assassin. My number one best tradecraft was not just J Law throwing her uncle under the bus, but just the idea of the mole passing the torch, where this position at this high of a level is so important. Like, it needs to be, it needs to continue, like through its ancestry or whatever. And we need someone new. My time is kind of passing. And then her taking that opportunity to throw her uncle under the bus to not only put her up as a hero, but also protect the mole. And now they have two. So that made my number one best tradecraft. What was your worst?
Worst was kind of a fun park to look through. I finally landed on my worst number 3 being her initiating sex with him was a bad idea in that he knows she's a sparrow. Like, if she, in this situation, if she initiates sex with him, all of his alarm bells should go off. This person is trying to play me.
Yeah.
But what I didn't get to mention during the episode is also she should also have known that. Like, she should also have known that it would ring all his, which it didn't, because the movie is kind of dumb that way. But she also should have known that that would ring off all his alarm bells, and so she shouldn't have done it in the first place. But I think like they were just like, the movie's kind of on a path where like it's got to have some sex in it. Or otherwise, like, people are going to be wondering, like, well, what was the whole point of the whole Sparrow School thing then?
Yeah.
I don't know. But it didn't really work for me. The way she hijacks Marta's operation on MLP makes it's very questionable to me that the SVR has so limited information about what Marta's operation is that they'll believe Dominica when she says like, oh yeah, I was part of that operation all the time. My number one worst is when Marta gets that information that like, oh yeah, if anybody found out about this, they would kill me. Oh, I'll just go tell my section chief, and then I get killed. I mean, it just, yeah, it's bad. Marta, you deserve better than that.
Yeah.
So we're talking some worst.
Yep. My number 3 worst tradecraft. Just the park they met at. I'd like to think 2 spies at this caliber would know this is where the prostitutes and drug dealers go, so maybe don't go there, because the likelihood of Vice showing up is higher than a different place. Even though it was cool, and I liked how it started off the story, and I also liked that it was real, that a lot of these dark places that spies would meet would also probably be places that drug dealers meet. So that made my number 3 worst tradecraft. My number 2 worst tradecraft was, I thought it was too easy for Nate to convince his superiors to send him back. I mean, just how all of that went down at the very beginning, I'm pretty sure he'd be at the top of like all of the SVR's like lists. And just if you see this face, we need to tell us immediately. So I don't think it would be that easy, and I don't think they should have sent him. My number one worst tradecraft was the warning Dominica with killing Marta and killing her station chief, and then torturing her after, like, from their perspective that she probably was a hero. I just think that's one of the biggest reasons why people would flip. Like, I don't think anybody's loyalty to any country is that strong where you do the right thing and then they torture you.
And then let you back out in the field.
Yeah, right. And then just send you right back. Yeah. Right. I don't buy it. Anyway, park benches. What are we going with?
I definitely know my opening bid. It's 3.5.
Okay. I was gonna go with the 3. I felt that there was enough that I really liked that I definitely wanted to give it some clout, but there was enough after kind of cutting the plot apart that really bugged me. But what do you think? What do you think can push us to the 0.5%?
My big comparison is Miss Sloane. Whereas like the cleverness is there and the legitimacy is there, but it's the fact there's more of it here. Yeah, Spy Game 3. You're going into Atomic Blonde territory. I mean, I can't quibble with the 3. I don't think I can. I don't know. I don't think I can make a strong case one way or the other. Okay, Good Shepherd. That's a Good Shepherd and Departed. Those are really great examples. Do you want to slide this a little bit lower than those? I could be cool with that.
I mean, looking at our 3.5s, I think they were much more consistent and realistic. But you telling me that you felt there was more in this than some of our 3s?
I mean, it's quantity, not quality. Is where I would get the 0.5, but I don't need to strong arm you over it at all.
It's just, to me, Sneakers, I think, is the perfect example. Like, there was a lot of cool shit in Sneakers, but it was also kind of like, that's kind of how I feel about this. Same thing with like No Way Out. Like, there was a lot of cool moments, but there was a lot of stuff where I was just like, so that's kind of why I was starting at a 3. I feel a little bit more stronger about a 3 talking about, because I'm looking at Samurai Spy, the TV Ipcrest file, right?
See, I don't know. The Ipcrest file, the TV Ipcrest file, that feels to me like an argument for the 3.5. I could put these on the, but I mean, we're right on the fence, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Okay. I'm not going to go home unhappy with setting it as a 3.
Yeah. Do you want to go? Let's. I kind of want to put it at a 3.
Let's call it.
All right. So there it is. Red Sparrow, 3 park benches. What are we doing after this? Aren't we doing the J.K. Simmons show?
Yeah, we're gonna tackle a weird kind of science fiction show called Counterpart. Just had 2 seasons, but it's a little bit of a alternate universe, maybe 2 different universes where J.K. Simmons plays a certain intelligence agent in one universe and a different one in the other. Don't know a lot about it, but I just heard good things, and it also comes as a recommendation from a friend of the show, Fred Kennedy.
I remember reading about it, and it looks really interesting. And this would fall under sci-fi, right? For us, which we don't get a whole lot of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all aboard. I love J.K. Simmons, and all of those pieces of information sound wonderful.
All right, can you rock us out of here? I got a text message that I have to take,
Okay.
or I got a phone call that I have to take. Can you tell the audience about all the social stuff, and then don't forget to ask Maura to initiate Protocol 9 when you're done.
Yeah. So join us next week, and if you haven't already subscribed to Spies Like Us podcast, you should be able to find it on any podcast app that you use. Check out all our other stuff, and if we haven't covered a show or a film that you really think, what are you guys doing with your lives? You're crazy by not covering this. You can reach us, go to spieslikeus.net. You can shoot us an email on the contact page, or you can tweet us, spies_like_us, or just shoot us a line, facebook.com, Spies Like Us podcast. Drop us a line, tell us how we're doing, if you like us, you hate us, or if you have any suggestions for shows or movies you want us to do. And I guess that's it. We'll see you next week. And Moira, can you please initiate Protocol 9?
Protocol 9 initiated. This podcast will self-destruct in 20 seconds. The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautix, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.